I'm nervous because this is the first time we're doing this. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Retro Dogfighter podcast, the first in what we hope will be many episodes looking back at classic flight sims. I am your co-host Brian, and joining me is your co-host Chase.
Howdy.
And your co-host Denny.
Hello.
Now, this is a podcast about flight sims, and you might say there are a lot of podcasts about flight sims, and it's true. I looked it up before I came up with this idea. There are a lot of podcasts about flight sims, but the problem is they're all about Microsoft Flight Simulator. They're all about DCS. You know, it's like, that's fine for those people, you know, for people who want that. But I couldn't find anyone talking about the classics, the older stuff. I'm going to just call it the good stuff. I'm just going to throw it out there. The good stuff from the 80s and especially 90s, where flight sims lead more toward being fun than full of fidelity. And I couldn't find anything. No one was talking about these kind of sims. And so I was like, why don't we just freaking do one ourselves? So, after thinking about who I wanted to join, because I didn't want to talk to by myself into a void, that would be not fun. Like, who do I want to co-host with this thing? And I thought of several people, and the two that I asked said yes. So joining me, I'm going to be honest, I did ask a couple other people alongside you guys. One said no, and another never got back to me. So there we go. I'm
proud to be the guy who answered the email.
I am. You guys don't know how happy I am that you said yes. Specifically you two, and I'll say why, guys. So Chase, I'm going to start with you because we're kind of doing a little bit of an interview here. So tell us your history with flight sims real quick.
You know, as far as flight sims go, I kind of got the bug with a game that you might heard of, Brian. I'm not sure because it is a really little kind of unknown title called Elite on the Commodore 64. And that 3 frames a second wireframe kind of gave me the bug. And then it was actually I started really getting into like 3D graphics and flight sims when I saw an episode, and I know you guys are going to know the name of that computer show that was on PBS.
Oh God.
Computer Chronicles? I think it's the Computer Chronicles. I think so.
Yeah, that might have been
anyway,
it. Yeah.
They had like one episode on the Amiga. And the game that they showed on the Amiga was FA-18 Interceptor. So when I finally left home and got enough money to buy an Amiga, that was literally the first game that I bought. Was Electronic Arts FA-18 Interceptor. And so from there, just kind of going along, and then all of a sudden, like PC flight sims got to be really good in the VGA days, and I'm like looking at a box of a couple of sims called Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe and Aces Over the Pacific, and I'm like holding the boxes in my hand, going, "Oh my God, I have to have a PC." So that's pretty much, I had been running another sim, another really kind of unknown and very very minor sim called Red Baron by Dynamics, and
sim. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that was back in the day when people still wrote software for the Amiga, and it kind of ran on an unexpanded Amiga, like at about a frame a second. But at that point, holding those two boxes, I knew I had to have a PC to fly these two sims, and that's pretty much where I took off. And then just from there, I just grabbed every sim that I could pretty much get my hands on. Weird joystick configurations and macros, and getting those things to actually run in DOS are what led to my, now almost 30-year-long IT occupation. And so, yeah, that's my beginnings. That's where I started. And along the way, I wrote kind of a proto blog. I won't go into too much detail because it was like super 90s edgy. And I also wrote for some, back when you actually wrote for websites, reviews for websites, and actually wrote for some magazine. I think that the other guest here has something to do with. I think he sent me some checks for reviews that I wrote. None of them were flight sims either, except for one. I can't even remember the name of it. It was a throw off of the Jane's F-15 sim that used the same engine that was just kind of more of a shoot 'em up. But yeah, that's kind of
Fighter Pilot.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the only actual paper review that I did of a flight sim, and then
a Fighter Pilot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. It was Electronic Arts attempt to squeeze a little more money out of the study sim by turning it into an arcade shoot 'em up and cranking the explosions up to full and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's where I came from. So basically started true flight simming. So I mean, I had looked at like ancient Commodore flight sims, like the first Micropro Strike Eagle, which I think displayed like 6 or 7 wireframes at once.
Oh my god!
And I was just like, yeah, this is nonsense. But when I saw F-18 Interceptor, I was like, yeah, that's it right there. So that's I would say that's where I started, and eventually moved on to PC sims and to where I am now.
Wow. I know a lot of people of our era who love FA-18 Interceptor. Denny, I think you're one of those people who love that game. I never played it, so I'm excited to eventually get to it. In our long run. Now, Denny, I think you might have the longest history of any of us in terms of not only, being a fan of flight sims, but covering them.
I in some past life, I did some good deed for a genie or something, and in my early years were blessed. My gateway drug to flight sims was the same as Chase's. It was F-18 Interceptor for the Amiga. I had a C64, but other than playing like Flight Simulator and Solo Flight, which were fun but not combat, just wasn't really that into them. Then F-18 Interceptor came out, saw the demo video of it, and at the computer store that I worked at, was just blown away. And I still remember chasing the UPS truck the day that it was out for delivery to me, because I knew it was on that truck. I don't know how I knew in the pre-internet days, but somehow there was a way in the 80s to know this. And I chased him down, got him to hand it over to me, took it back, and proceeded to not do any of my college work for a few days while I flew off of aircraft carriers. So I was big into Amiga flight sims. They had things like 2-digit frame per second, well before the PC ever did. It was cool times. Then my first job out of college was playing games for money. I was an editor at Compute Magazine.
Oh wow!
That was one of the early computer magazines. I came in at the tail end. They used to run type-in programs. They had floppy disks for Commodore 64s. I started around 1990, so by then it was mostly PC focused. I did a lot of the Amiga coverage, and I started writing about flight sims. for them. Anytime a flight sim came in, the Larry Holland stuff, Secret Weapons, the Luftwaffe, that kind of thing, I would grab the review. I wrote God knows how many previews of Strike Commander before it came out. And I became the flight guy. So then we ended up getting purchased by a company, General Media, which was also known more popularly as Penthouse Publications.
What?
And yeah, yeah, Penthouse bought Compute the last few years of its existence. There's a whole separate podcast on stories from that one, guys. But they owned Omni Magazine, which was the amazing science and science fiction magazine from the 80s and 90s. And I transferred over to that. And this was like the height of flight sim amazingness. I got set up to do an article on something called Fightertown USA. I think it still exists in California. And it was like full cockpit flight simulators, primitive 1994 graphics and stuff, but they had like amazing cockpit flight sims. And as part of the article, I managed to also wrangle a ride in the back seat of an F-15D. So
God
like
damn.
talk about like peaking career wise in your 20s. Like I've done a lot of cool things since then, but nothing that much fun. I got to fly in an F-15D. Then Microsoft ran a quote unquote competition among gaming editors to let us fly air combat in T-34s that were equipped with lasers and laser detectors. So we actually flew real air combat maneuvers in ex-Air Force and Navy T-34 trainers. Super cool stuff. And then the final amazing flight sim writer thing I got to do was when Microprose released the first B-17 game. We got to fly in 909, the Collings Foundation's B-17.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, super cool stuff.
Oh my god.
So yeah, and this was my day job. I was getting paid for this. It was awesome. I could literally sit and play a flight sim for like 3 or 4 days in a row at work and then write about it. It hasn't been nearly that much fun ever since. But the awesome thing about that too was like working in it, I had access to all the flight sims on all the platforms. And then I got hired by Computer Gaming World, and they noticed that I'd written about a lot of airplane stuff. So they're like, why don't you be the sim editor and you can do a sim column? And so then for the next about 5 years, I did a monthly simulation column for CGW, writing about various flight sims and trying my best to get them to add features that I wanted because I had the power.
If I can break in here on Denny, I want everybody listening to this. Denny spent 5 years writing about flight sims, not first person shooters or RTSs. I think all the listeners out there, look, flight sims were a big deal in the 90s. So I'll just leave it. I'll leave it at that. So that's, I mean, a lot of you probably already, a lot of these people listening to this probably already know that, but maybe if you were born after that, flight sims were a major genre. So a lot of the things we're going to be talking about aren't like these, Eastern European pay to win, things that we have now, but they were tentpole products.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of money and effort was put into them. And and Denny, man, he sat right on top of that. So anyway, pardon the interruption. I just I heard that and I'm like, wow, we had an editor for 5 years. How much has changed? Talking about flight sims.
And I went back and looked at some of my old columns, and I'd be talking about the 3 flight sims that had come out that month and the 4 more that were on the horizon.
Oh my god,
it was insane.
Such a time.
As opposed to like there are 4 active combat sims in now that most of them have been out for 10 to 15 years. It was a very different world.
I know
they were more rudimentary, but they were more fun too. So hey, So yeah, that was the career part of it, and then I've stayed in it, and I've always owned the most ridiculously expensive PC possible because you need that for whatever the current flight sim is, and VR didn't help there, having to keep things at the top of the performance spectrum.
I do want to say it is swinging back in the direction of these kind of older sims with things like Tidy Combat Arena and Nuclear Option. Like we are starting to see more 90s style flight sims that don't need the high end VR study for 2 weeks type of thing that things like DCS do. So it's great to see kind of the pendulum swinging back a little bit, slowly but surely. So I just want to say I don't have the lengthy history that these two gentlemen do. My first flight sim was Sublogic's Flight Simulator 2 in 1986 for the Tandy 1000. That was my first flight sim. My God, I played the hell out of that. And then I got Jet. Remember Jet?
Yeah.
Yep.
Sublogic's Jet. Yeah.
The one that really got me rolling, though, was F-19. That was the one that really cemented my love of these whole things. And I did do some writing. Like I wrote for some websites. I did some stuff for PC Pilot. The coolest thing I did for PC Pilot was I got to go to, they don't exist anymore, Northwest Airlines Training Center in Minnesota. I got to fly 3 of their full-size flight sims for an article. That was amazing.
Oh, very cool.
That was astounding. And Minnesota was very nice too. So we have, each of us has history with this particular genre, and we also have a love for this particular era of flight sims. And now I want to be, I want to clarify what we're going to be covering on this show. We're going to be covering primarily flight sims between the. Did you know they went back to the late 70s? That's how long. I didn't know that. They go back to the late 70s. To probably, I don't know, probably the early aughts, maybe. That's the era we're really going to be focusing on. We might cover some other stuff beyond that, but we're also focusing on computer flight sim. So I know there was some stuff for the Sega Genesis, like MiG-29 and LHX. I know there was some stuff for the Sega We're not covering that stuff. We're covering computer stuff. And we're going to be covering things that are at least we're trying to not do arcade games. We're going to be trying to do actual, like, somewhat, not serious, but like somewhat, what's the word? I don't know. Things that are more actual sims and less arcade games. I mean, they might lean toward the arcade, but like we're trying to maintain a focus of like things that try to be a flight sim. So that's what we're going to be focusing on here. And to keep the introductions going further, I wanted to talk about maybe our favorite sims if we have one. Now, I'll start with me while you guys think about it for a second. My favorite flight sim ever has turned out to be Gunship 2000. Has turned out to be my favorite flight sim ever because I love the variety that game offers. I love that could be a desert island game because the missions are random. There's like 8 helicopters you can play with. You can fly in frickin' Antarctica, you know, which I don't think you can do that in any other sim. So I never really had a favorite until a few years ago when I started playing Gunship, and I'm like, wow, this does pretty much everything I want in a flight sim. And I know it's 35 years old. Oh my God. 1991. Oh God. Do you guys have a favorite flight sim? Like if you had to pick one, do you guys have one?
You want to go first, Denny, or me?
I'll go.
Okay.
That's like asking you to pick your favorite child.
I know.
I only have one of those, so that's easy for me. But I think thinking about it, the one that came to mind was 1942 Pacific Air War.
That's a good one.
Primitive graphics, but they did a really good job of the experience of those battles. It was like Battle of Midway. And
yes.
and you had a good variety of the planes on both sides you could fly. It was back in the days. This may amaze some of the people who grew up on like DCS and IL2, but flight sims used to have AI. I know that sounds crazy, and the pilots would actually do things like Immelmans and maneuvers and things. It was nuts. Yeah, and like all that stuff was as good as a computer of those days could do it, and it had a strategic layer
where
you could you could launch your planes off the carrier and try to find the Japanese carriers, and I would kill to have. I am saying this on a public podcast. I would figuratively kill to have a version of that with a modern engine. Would just be
folks.
mind-blowing.
If you haven't played 1942, that's like. That could be another desert island game because like that game has so much content. You could play it for, I mean, there are single missions. There's hundreds of single missions. There's separate career modes for the U.S. Navy, U.S. Army, Japanese Navy, Japanese Army, and there's the carrier mode on top of that. So there's, oh my God, there's so much content for that sim. It's one of my favorites also. I think it's my favorite World War II sim. That's a great choice. Another Microprose one also, by the way.
Yep.
Oh man, Microprose. We'll do a separate show about how much we love them. So Chase, did you think of one?
Oh, absolutely. Pa's a good choice, but it is eclipsed by the greatest sim of all time, and that is European Air War.
This is
to me, it is the epitome of between playability and atmosphere and realism. It was one of the first sims that did large scale. It did a lot of fake. It did a lot of smoke and mirrors, but it was a relatively large scale combat arena. So there was a bunch of bombers out there, and just like Pa, it's a desert island game. I mean, because you can fly. There's so many planes. You can, fly both sides. You've got kind of a strategic layer. The AI was excellent. It was basically Pa in the Eastern Theater, and it was managed by a mythical figure, produced by a mythical figure known only as TK, who injected just amazing playability into this sim. That is EAW to me. I don't think there will ever, European Air War, there will never be a better sim. I mean, I like PA because the Pacific Theater is criminally unrepresented.
Yes.
But European Air War is it is so good. And yeah, I really do love that. And guess what? Microprose.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Toward the end of days, Microprose, but there was still enough talent there that they created something really special.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, and it's actually, basically it's the sequel to PA. It was built off the same engine. I'll save it for the episode where we talk about this, but that TK development hell forever, and he came in and he was a freaking genius and made it work.
Yeah, I remember reading the articles about how TK swooped in and really made it the masterpiece of his day. Now, as we said, folks, not all these sims are from Microprose, but you can also get them today if you want to try them, if you've not played them. They're all available for digital purchase on Steam and GOG. They all run fine. I think EAW does need a bit of tweaking to get running, but you can get it running on modern hardware. It does take you gotta play with it a little bit, but
actually the Steam version of EAW is pretty click and go.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
good.
They've done something to it to make it work.
The same way with GOG when they released it, they actually took a community patch, much to the community patch people's dismay, and put it on there. The 128 patch, So it is. I mean, there's still some. Yeah, there's still a little like direct draw stuff. There are better. I will just say there are better ways to run EAW than do that distro, but we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, but yeah, but it's great to see these old sims become more and more available. I know a lot of people are like, Chase, you and I have had this argument where it's like, just why do they need to be on sale again? You know, I know, but I am glad they are for at least preservation's sake. So and I appreciate that, and I don't mind giving the current rights holders money either. I don't mind giving them money to bring this stuff back. So I wanted to close out with one question for all of us, and we all clearly have an affinity for these kind of this classic era of flight sims, but I wanted to talk about why we love these sims. What is it about these particular sims of this particular era that like we could play a more modern, we could play IL-2, we could play DCS, but instead people like me go back to play Gunship and go back to play, Fighters Anthology and things like that. And I want to talk about why. And I think my big reason is I think a lot of more modern sims like DCS and whatnot I think they've forgotten how to be fun. I think they've just forgotten. They think the fun is in the fidelity, and I have never found the fun in the fidelity. I've never, ever found the fun in the fidelity. And that's fine for people who do. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I really don't like the way the modern genre has leaned toward you got to read a 300-page manual and study for a week before you can even taxi to the runway. I don't like that. So I love how these older sims really struck a good balance between fun, accessibility, but also enough fidelity that you could feel like you're a pilot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they focus on being convincing rather than just replicating the hardware.
Yes.
But they were about the experience of flying these planes. Yes. Not about learning to actually fly it. Spoiler alert, when I flew in the F-15, somehow I managed to enjoy that without having anything to do with starting up the engines. Now, I know that's what DCS fans love to do, is power on all the systems. But yeah, no. And if you read about real air combat, there was a story that I was reading a book about the Crusader when I was working on an article about U.S. Navy fighters. And there's a story from the Admiral Gilchrist about a pilot flying nap of the Earth during the Cuban Missile Crisis in a Crusader and literally almost running a farmer over when he came over the top of a hill. He was that low. And you read about stuff like that. You read about people flying in the formations of 150 bombers. And you compare that to the sterility of modern sims. The sims of that day tried to recreate those kind of experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Jace, did you have something to add? I think you got cut off.
Denny has, I'm pretty much of the same opinion as Denny, and he has been a lot more verbose and better spoken than I have. But think when this is a subject that I've really thought about. It boils down to another gaming god, Sid Meier.
Yes.
And one of his things about what makes a game fun is interesting decisions.
Yep.
Interesting decisions is what he boiled it down to. And in the modern switchology planes and there is no interesting decisions in, hooking up an APU, at a specific time and flipping. There's no decisions there. You're going through a checklist, a process. Interesting decisions are when I am flying an F4F Wildcat and I'm being approached by a zero. How do I fight that zero? That is an interesting decision. And I don't need to know all the switchology. I need to know what, planning the moves and things that are there. And that was what the 90s sims had in spades. didn't have the long startup procedures or differential braking or this, that, or the other. You just had the interesting decisions of how do I take off from a carrier? What is the best way to pull lead on a more maneuverable opponent? Things like that. That was all you were focused on. You didn't have this play school busy box, flippy switchy to do that you're going to do every single time to no result other than to get the plane rolling. And that with a lot of the sims that the 2 or 3 sims that we have now, that's the focus and you're getting, here's a word, the immersion, right? No, it's those are not interesting decisions. The 90s sims were full of interesting decisions without it being a job. I guess that's the best way I can put it.
Yeah, Sid Meier, since you bring him up, has a great quote. It's a little long. Would you like me to read it? I saved it because
absolutely.
Yeah, do it.
It's about this very particular thing. Quote, mostly I was tired of hyper-realism. If real life were that exciting, who would need video games in the first place? The flight simulator genre especially was forever clamoring for more dials to watch, more flaps to control, more accurate wind speed and wheel friction calculations, and no one seemed to notice that it had turned into work. Games weren't supposed to train you to be a real pilot. They were supposed to let you pretend for an hour that you could be one if you wanted to. It wasn't escapism if you didn't actually get anywhere. Unquote.
And that is why we all bow to the altar of Sid.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sid Meier's memoir, if anyone's looking for something to read between this and our next
it's so good. It's so
literally
good.
Called Sid Meier's memoir.
Yeah.
Great read. Highly recommended.
The chapter they did on Red Storm Rising was maybe my favorite chapter in that. Oh my God, that whole story about how Red Sim Rising came to be. Oh, and that's the thing. While we love the flight sims, folks, eventually we're going to cover other sims of this era, like tank sims and naval sims, and probably even civilian sims. But it's fine. They were good too. So we have a lot to cover. I've been putting together a list of sims to cover, and it's in the hundreds at this point. We're going to be releasing an episode. We're going to try to be doing an episode monthly because we're busy. I mean, if things take off, maybe we could do it more, but take off. I didn't mean that.
I see what you did there.
I did not plan that. But we're going to start doing it monthly. And the next episode, we're going to test the format a bit. We're going to talk about we're going to look at the early Lucasfilm sims for our next. We're going to jump a little bit out of order and talk about we're going to try to come out of the gate hot. This was Denny. This was your idea, and I think it's a good one. We're going to try and come out of the gate hot because a lot of people back in the era we're talking about played one of these: Battlehawks, Their Finest Hour, or especially Secret Weapons of the Luftwaffe. Just about every fan of the genre from this era has played at least one of those. So it was Denny's idea that should be a good jump off episode to test the format, and everything. So that's going to be our next episode. So like I said, we're going to be doing these hopefully roughly monthly, roughly. But we all have lives. So, if there's going to be a delay, it'll be posted on the website. Anyway, so this is our first episode. The audio was a little funky. I know we're still hammering these things out, but I hope you all enjoyed it. And we have an email address, retrodogfight@gmail.com. If you have any suggestions or constructive criticism.
That's for all you DCS rivet counters out there.
Because they're going to hear me and go like, oh my God, arcade player, but whatever.
I was going to say, there's already several podcasts covering DCS. So I don't see them needing to worry about anything. If someone's not talking about DCS, Who cares? Like you got at least a few podcasts for you. You know, you don't need us.
Hey, just in my own defense, because I called out DCS earlier, I do love the modern IL-2 games. I do love DCS. They're great as an airplane nut. They just don't scratch the itch that the old flight sims.
Well, I think you and I talked about this on we all hang out on a forum called Quarter to Three, and I think we talked about, and you might have come up with this pilot sim versus plane sim thing that we talked. We have had that discussion, and so a lot of the sims we're going to be talking about are pilot sims, where the simulation is, like Denny said, a place to put you into an interesting place, making interesting decisions. While things like IL-2, for the most part, and DCS are more plain sims, where you're mostly focusing on fuel-to-air mixture and blah-de-blah. I personally don't care about that crap. I am not interested at all. I got other things to do. I mean, I'm glad that stuff is there for people who like it, but that is not what we're going to be focusing on. So, folks, I hope you have enjoyed this first episode of the Retro Dogfight. I keep wanting to say Dogfighter, but Dogfight. I got to get my own name straight, our own name straight in the head. I hope you enjoyed this first episode of the Retro Dogfight podcast. I hope you learned a little bit more about us. And we have a lot of Sims to cover. And I am excited because I haven't played a lot of these. Like, I played the Lucasfilm ones that we're talking about, but then we're going to be talking about like text-based Sims that came out in 1978. So we have a lot to talk about, and I am so excited about it. So, friends, I want to thank you for tuning in and listening to us. And again, if you want to contact us, it's retrodogfight@gmail.com. And I was trying to think of a way to end this, and I wanted to say something like fly safe and like good hunting and fly safe, something like that. Fly safe and good hunting. You know, something like that.
Bogey on your 6.
Bogey on your 6. Check. That's not a bad one. Check out for that boat. Keep an eye out for that bogey on your 6, or look out for that bogey on your 6. Yeah, we'll get it. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.